The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline, a Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. The season is over, Sam.
Yes,
how are you feeling?
The season is over. I feel good. I think we were ready for this season to be over.
Yeah.
You know, you and I have talked about this particular final series in a couple of different episodes, main feed, Patreon, and we've done multiple streams on playback. What did we do? I think we did game 3 and game 5. So both ended up being Celtics wins. But, you know, we were kind of just joking last night on the stream, and we had Kellen Olson with us too, that just like, yeah, this was not a fun experience to watch the finals this year.
I would say the entire playoffs was pretty boring. Like, the Celtics kind of steamrolled every team they were playing against. Of course, they had the luxury of them missing a bunch of good players, and you know the Suns got swept, so obviously that was boring. The closest series we got was the Minnesota-Denver series, and most of those games were blowouts one way or the other.
Yeah.
So even that series wasn't really. There was one overtime game, I think, and the rest of it just was never really that close. It just wasn't the most exciting playoffs. And you did, when we were talking about it yesterday, you did have reasoning for that too, that I thought was interesting.
Sure. I mean, it's you know, I'm only saying the same thing that a lot of other people are saying, that, you know, it's interesting that we talk about, first of all, I mean, I guess I should say congratulations to the Boston Celtics.
Yeah, I guess.
You know, I like, good for them. Good for Jaylen Brown, our guy. That's our guy.
That's right. That's right.
It was either him. I needed, for narrative purposes, either him or Drew to steal away the Finals MVP from Tatum again for agenda narrative purposes. And so I feel like I got what I wanted. It really was
the best case scenario, right? This Luka Doncic losing and the Celtics winning, but Jason Tatum not being crowned.
That's absolutely right.
That's really the only. That's like, if you had to like concoct a general NBA fan scenario where neither Luka or Tatum have been crowned, yeah, this was it, I guess.
Neither of their stock was boosted by this finals, which is pretty incredible. Tatum just tweeted a couple, and I don't hate Jason Tatum. Like, I dislike watching Luka way more than Tatum. So I don't think you and I are exactly in the same place on that, but I think it's objectively very funny. Tatum tweeted just a couple hours ago, he was like, in response to the NBA pointing out that he led his team in the finals in points, rebounds, assists, I think all the counting stats. And he was like, what are they going to say now? And then you just scroll to the replies, and it's everyone being like, shoot better than 40%, win finals MVP. So it's like, you know, there are still very much narratives that are being held over Tatum's head. Like, it's great that he won the ring, but yeah, not exactly the cleanest cut series for him. But what I was going to say is, so like, yeah, congrats to the Celtics. We live in an age of parity. That's great, in theory. Maybe not great for ratings, but I think it's good for fans of the league. But it doesn't matter how much parity there is in the league now if we're kind of in a place of no going back with regard to three-point shot variance. And these two teams in particular, the Boston Celtics, Dallas Mavericks, took a ton of threes all season. But really, it's everyone now takes 35, 40 threes a game, except the Suns. We hope to get there next year. Mm-hmm. And the more three-point variance you inject into your game, the more blowouts there are going to be. That's just how it is. We're seeing statistically fewer and fewer games that are decided by 10 points. So there can be all the parity in the world, and certainly the league is trying to regulate that with these now first apron and second apron rules, these salary cap rules that make it more difficult to build super teams. But a lot of series are still just going to go the way they did this year, where maybe it goes even to 6 or 7 games, but it's going to be 15-point semi-blowout, 22-point actual blowout. Okay, here's a close game that was decided by 7 points. But like, there are fewer and fewer of those. So yeah, I don't know. Kellen made an interesting point on the stream last night of like, when does this come to a head? And are we are we 5 years away from like a major rule change that addresses this in some way, right? Like, you know, he talked about
it'll be right when the Suns get really good at shooting threes.
When they get really good at exploiting the rules, then they'll take it away from us.
Then they'll change it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like as soon as we got an owner who was willing to spend money, they took away all of those advantages of having owners who spend money. But yeah, like, I mean, eliminating the corner three would be the extreme reaction. I don't think that's going to happen. But, like, you know, people have suggested no more defensive 3-second. Just allow the centers to kind of roam in the paint. You had
that means more threes.
Right. That means more threes too. So it's like I don't know what the solution is. But this is going to be really interesting to track because this, like, to me, this is like the battle of the NBA. The controversial battle for the next 5-10 years is going to be how they figure this out because they're raking in crazy amounts of money on the next TV deal, and yet they need to actually sustain interest in the product, right? Like it can't just be like online social media impressions that are paying out these players their $40, $50, $60 million salaries. No, you need people actually watching and remaining interested in the product. So that they are still, you know, watching all of these advertisements, and we'll see. We'll see what gets it done.
They should just make 3-pointers worth 2.5 points, and then it's solved. It's solved. You have to shoot a really high percentage for that to be valuable at that point.
Yeah, the three should just be 2.7 points.
Yeah, exactly.
And
really get it complicated. Yeah.
What if like a dunk was worth more than a layup? Like you just
well the Suns would be screwed.
But that would be
scenario.
Wouldn't that be interesting? What if like a dunk was 2.1 points? Like you just like throw it off slightly. So now it's like, oh, everyone's like, oh shit, we need athletes now. Like just do some really funky arcade style stuff to the league. And I'm not being serious. I don't think, you know, this is what the G League is for too. They can implement any rule changes that they have at the G League level for a couple years and kind of test things out. And you know, that's the advantage of having that minor league system is you can afford to be more arcadey. But I do feel like, I don't know, they probably got to do something. And I don't know what that something is.
Yeah, I have a feeling it's not going to happen anytime soon. I hope the Suns can somehow sneak a championship in there before they do anything. Although if they made the game benefit mid-range shots more anytime soon, that sure would help the Phoenix Suns at this point, which we're going to talk about in a second. We want to talk about, and we're going to talk about Bronny. We're going to talk about Kolek. We're going to talk about our Royce O'Neale extension, which by the time this podcast is out may have already happened. But before we do that, I just want to talk about the experience of watching this finals, like from a Suns fan perspective. Now, rooting interests is one thing. Talking about, you know, wanting the Mavs to lose or Jason Tatum to lose, but from a basketball perspective, and I think the conversation for me should focus on what the Suns can learn from this playoffs and this finals, these two teams that made the NBA finals. Of course, the fifth new, you know, a different team has won in all the 5 last years, which has been fascinating.
I would also posit, is there anything that they should learn at all? Because, you know, I think there is, and you know, I did write down things that I think they could learn, so I'm sort of answering my own question there. But the only reason I bring it up is because I do think, you know, there's a little bit of an obsession every time we crown a new champion of, okay, everyone's got to follow.
How they changed the game.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. Is like how this team changed the game, and now everyone has to follow in their footsteps.
Because the Warriors did.
Right.
You know, like,
but not every
one
champion
team
does.
Did, and I would say that no team has since then. Every team since then has won in a slightly different way. The Warriors, of course, notwithstanding, because they have a championship in the last few years as well. But nobody plays like the Nuggets because nobody can. Nobody plays like the Bucks because nobody can. You know, the Celtics are kind of one of the more almost like traditional teams. But even then, actually, I'll just go into my first one here to just talk about them. The two teams that shot the most threes. This one's an obvious one to learn. And by the way, I want to just preface this conversation that we're about to have for the 1,000th time with mentioning that I do kind of think it's boring to talk about how the Suns need to shoot more threes. I understand why hearing that a lot can be boring for the people listening to this podcast. And I also want to say that shooting more threes does not guarantee you more wins. It's not a direct, like the Charlotte Hornets shoot a lot of threes. The Washington Wizards shoot a lot of threes and have for a long time. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to win more games. But if you combine good players with a lot of three-point shots, that's a pretty good recipe for success in the NBA. These two teams shot the most threes, but I wanted to illustrate just the extent to which that they shot more than the Suns. The Celtics in the regular season, there's 82 games, took 811 more three-point attempts than the Suns last season. Is that more or less than you would have expected?
So that's about 10 per game.
Yeah.
That's about what I expected, maybe even a little bit less.
It's a
lot. No, it's a big difference.
It's just a lot.
It's a big difference.
Yeah. And the Mavs took 571
that sounds
more
right.
three-point attempts than the Suns last season. And this is the number that blew my mind when looking at these stats. 236 more corner threes alone the Mavs took than the Suns. The Suns just did not generate three-point shots, but especially because they're all catch and shoots in the corner, just not enough catch and shoot three-point attempts from the corners.
And it's the best type of three, arguably. I mean, it depends.
It's one of the best shots on the court, outside of a shot at the rim.
From a pure expected value, statistician, whatever perspective, other than a layup, it's the best shot. Now, you could say that like pull-up threes and your ability as a space creator to like use that ability to create for others makes that more important, and I'd say you're right. But you still need to have guys who are taking a healthy amount of corner threes, actively seeking out that shot. And the Suns just did not find their comfort there. I think we really wanted Yuta Watanabe to be that guy. So there was some sort of vision last summer that maybe he was going to be a 15, 20 minute per game seventh man. He was going to be our Sam Hauser or whatever, essentially. And never materialized. So back to the drawing board on that one. But absolutely they need to be taking more. And just the fact that the two teams both take a lot of pull-up threes, but they take them in different ways too. The Celtics definitely have a more equitable distribution of among their three-point shooters, where they have so much depth. Like they have the strongest 2 through 6 rotation, clearly, of maybe any team, I don't know, in a long time, which is why they won in the first place. And all of those guys take catch and shoot threes, whereas Dallas a lot more relies on like Luka taking the step back threes that he does, and Kyrie taking the pull up threes that he does. So it's just whether it's a role player or superstar, everyone's got to pull their weight for the Suns starting next year.
I think that's what's been. The Celtics do a very, very good job of leveraging overplaying into corner threes just over and over and over again. And that requires, for them at the very least, the majority of the time, all four players who don't have the ball being willing to take that three on the catch. The Suns can leverage the same type of defense. Teams play Kevin Durant and Devin Booker similar to how they play Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. They're going to guard them in similar ways. So that means the Suns can find ways to leverage that. But if it's Devin Booker in there and KD catches it, he has to shoot on the catch, which he did do some last season. He has to continue to do even more. And vice versa. If it's Devin Booker on the catch when KD is the one leveraging a double team, then he has to shoot it as well. And Bradley Beal, I think the guy who made the largest attempt to do that, obviously has to be one of the guys to do that. The fact that all three of them
actually shot well,
don't traditionally do that has been an issue for them throughout the season. The Celtics took 389 less mid-range shots than the Suns, and the Mavs took 214 less mid-range shots. There's only one team in the NBA that took more mid-range shots than the Phoenix Suns. Do you want to guess? It's an easy one when you hear it.
Chicago Bulls.
The Chicago Bulls. Yep. And it was about 150, like less than 200 more.
Yeah.
Than the Suns, and it's a lot of mid-range shots for a team trying to have a great offense. I'm going to talk more about the offense when I go over another one. But when I look at the problem as a whole, it's a general math problem, which people hate to hear sometimes when they're talking about basketball, hoops, if you will. But they take a lot of mid-range shots. They don't take enough three-point attempts, and that means that they're not leveraging the defense that the Stars attract to take the best shots necessary. That includes shots at the rim as well, but I think the three-point attempts are one of the more obvious ones because of the way that the two teams who shot the most three-point attempts in the NBA made the NBA Finals in this last year.
Yeah, a couple other things to consider. Obviously, we want to push KD, Book, and Beal to shoot more of these types of shots, but also understanding a little bit that they are who they are. That means so much falls into the hands of who are the other two role players who are starting around them. And if you're Grayson Allen for the Suns this past season, and I don't know if Grayson's going to start again for them, maybe they'll try and get some sort of defensive wing upgrade with more size. But if Grayson ends up starting again, he needs to be even more willing to shoot. I really...
More like Derek White.
More,
right?
Yeah. I mean,
occasionally take one dribble and shoot it.
Yeah,
if they're blowing by you.
I don't have the pull-up 3-point percentage on hand for Grayson, but I know I've looked it up in the past, and at times I think it was close to damn near 50% this season. He just needs to be much more willing to take that shot. I know he's not going to touch the ball in the half court as much as the three stars are, but if he has it in transition, he's got the green light as far as I'm concerned, and I really hope Bud instills that in him and understands the importance of a guy like Grayson Allen. But arguably even more important is the difference between having a Yusuf Nurkic versus either always starting Al Horford or Kristaps Porzingis at the 5. It's once again coming back to, we talk about these two teams in general, honestly, if you want to, and they have very different types of centers, but both types of centers are doing something absolutely that Yusuf Nurkic is not capable of providing. Either they're spacing, in the case of the Celtics, they're spacing, and you've got 5-out spacing all the time. Or in the case of Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, it's vertical gravity. It's the ability to catch a lob, to play 2-on-1 out of the pick and roll, and put pressure on the rim. And any way you slice it, Nurkic cannot do either of those things. And the next starting center of the Phoenix Suns, ideally, needs to be able to do one of those two things.
Yeah, both ideally. Catch and shoot, 45.6% for Grayson Allen. Pull-up threes, he took 63, and he made near 50% at 49.2. Yeah. 31 of 63. So Grayson Allen got to shoot that more.
And I'll tell you right now, that's a statistical outlier. That's a little bit of statistical noise. If he takes 200 pull-up threes next year, that percentage is going down. But if that percentage goes down from 50 to 40, from 50 to fucking 37, 38, it's still really good.
Yeah,
it's still really good offense.
In the previous season is what he shot. So that somewhere in between those two is probably where he could be, assuming he's healthy. But in 21-22, he shot 43% on pull-ups, 81 attempts, one a game basically. He needs to shoot more of them essentially. It like you said, it's not all KD, Brad, and Booker. It's Grayson Allen. He shot a lot. He did a good job. Push that number up even more. Take another one a game off dribble. Take 2 a game off dribble now. That's okay. They go under that screen. You shoot it. They go over that screen. Maybe you give it up and you try something else. If they jump at you, instead of driving into the paint and trying to find another shot, take a step to the side and shoot a 3 instead. Right? Turn a couple of those into another 3 a game. And then for Nurkic, Nurkic had that thumb problem where his free throw attempts absolutely tanked. Maybe they're going to try to get him to shoot 3s again this season. It didn't work last season. I'm not saying that's something they're going to try, but if they do, shoot a lot of them. Don't give up after 5 games. Really put an honest effort into it. And if it's absolutely tanking the Suns' offense, maybe he's not the right guy to do that. But if they can find somebody else, you're in on Mo Bamba.
I'm in on Mo Bamba. We know Mo Bamba
they find someone else to do it.
Take those shots. So we'll see, man. But yeah.
What else?
I've got just written down here that the Celtics are an outlier. And this is kind of speaking to what I was talking about before. This is both good and bad. I think it's good in the sense that, again, we're trying not to always read too much into what it means when one team wins a championship. They just won a championship where their best player, I don't care if he led them in total points or total rebounds.
Yeah.
He averaged 22.
What else are you going to say?
He averaged 22 points per game. That's not the catastrophic bit. It's not good, but like it's 22 points per game on 39% shooting from the field and 26% from deep. That was Jason Tatum's final series. I went back and looked, by the way, because I couldn't remember exactly what Devin Booker averaged in the series sweep against the Timberwolves this year. But you know what I forget, man, is how crazy that game 4 was, where really we got 49 points out of Book and another 33 from KD, and we still dropped game 4 because Bradley Beal gave you the worst game you've ever seen from anyone. We gave
it away 3 or 4 times in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and they had the lead going into the fourth quarter in that game too. That's the other thing that I didn't quite remember. So 82 combined points from our 2 stars in game 4 when we really needed one, and the entire supporting cast just let them down. But the reason I looked it up is because Book in that series, mainly because of that game, he averaged 27 points on 49% for the field, 35 from deep. Book has never had a playoff series anywhere near as bad as the one that Jason Tatum just had.
He was carried.
And yet...
How many superstars do you think we could put in Tatum's position and the Celtics still win?
Like
most of them?
12, maybe. I don't know. 15? A lot.
Yeah.
But the Celtics still won in 5 games. That's the other thing, is that this was not a close series. They won in 5 games because that's how strong, I already said it, but their 2 through 6 rotation is ridiculous. I mean, being able to bring Porzingis off the bench is ridiculous. Having a guy like Derek White as your worst starter is ridiculous. So they were able to succeed in spite of Tatum's general stinkiness, where he literally, in that series, he did not wake up until the second half of game 5, where he was like, oh, we're up by 20. I'm gonna stat pad 20 points in the second half on 80% shooting
to prove everyone wrong.
And then they're maybe even going to give me Finals MVP, which thank God they didn't.
Which thank God they didn't. Yeah.
So this is great. It's great in the sense that it means if you have a well-structured team and you nail all of your moves around the margins and you make the right trades, oftentimes only requiring 1-2 first-round picks. It only took the Celtics 1 first-round pick to get Al Horford back from the Thunder. It took them 2 first-round picks a couple years ago to get Derek White. But, like, these are not crazy moves that they made, right? These are not league-changing moves. They just did a lot with the guys they had. It means that you can still win a championship in spite of not having a top 5 superstar. That's great news, because arguably the Suns don't have that. So the Suns could still build a championship team around Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, as long as the rest of their pieces are truly, truly clicking. At the same time, we should still understand that the Celtics are an outlier, and that what they just accomplished has only been done a few times in NBA history. And the last time was probably 20 years ago with that Detroit Pistons team. Now, I still think it's a little bit disrespectful to outright be like Jason Tatum is Rip Hamilton or Chauncey Billups. I wouldn't go that far. I don't think he's one of, like, he's
the averages are pretty close.
He's better. I mean, in the final series, on the whole, I think you get the average Jason Tatum series, he's going to be a better player than Rip Hamilton.
On a per possession stats, there's a good chance that Hamilton was actually better in the NBA Finals than Tatum.
That NBA Finals was weird, though, because the final score of every game was like 77-70. So yeah. I'm afraid to even look it up. But just understanding, this is great because it gives fans of every team faith that they can still win a championship. However, if you're in the position, the Suns are not, but just bear with me for a second. If you're in the position where you're building a team from scratch, the idea does not suddenly become, oh, we just need a Jason Tatum type player and we're fine. The NBA has always and always will be, to an extent, dominated by these top 5 talents. It's always going to be easier if you have the Luka Doncic's or the Nikola Jokic's or the Giannis's. Like, if you're building a team from scratch, drafting a player like that, or in a rare case, being able to acquire a player like that via trade or free agency, is still the ultimate goal, because it's going to give you a way better shot year over year. The fact that Boston was able to succeed with Tatum putting up a stinker like that is just reassuring to the rest of us who don't have a true MVP type player.
Boston, you're right. They're an outlier. They're unique in that way, but they're also unique in that they Like, I think Dallas, they have that top five-ish player, depending on the series for him. But obviously the finals, he wasn't quite right. And then everyone just fits around him. Everything kind of works as far as the fit of that team. And fit has mattered so much in the playoffs in recent years. The Suns being one of the better examples of it in 2021 in their run to the NBA Finals. The team just fit together really, really well, even though they really only had one true superstar, and then Chris Paul, who was still a star. But, at times wasn't in the NBA playoffs, and they still made it to the NBA Finals, thanks to some luck. Of course, they're not going to pretend like that didn't exist. But the Celtics are unique in that they have all the star power, and they all fit together really well. It's just a really, really well put together team. There's not much to learn from it as far as from a general management perspective, other than, making all the right moves at all the right times. From their perspective, they did have some pretty massive failures with Tatum and Brown, and they didn't give up on it. So, if you're thinking about the Suns, they had a pretty massive failure last year, and they didn't give up on it.
And
if they could find the right moves to put around them, maybe it'll work.
And I was thinking about it, too. Like, they've had weird players over the years of, in order to acquire Derek White, they had to trade Josh Richardson. Josh Richardson, not a role player who worked in Boston. Worked in Miami 10 years ago, did not work in Boston. In order to get
Marcus Smart too. I think they used one of the picks from the Marcus Smart trade.
Yeah, Marcus. Yeah. In order to get Al Horford, they had to trade Kemba Walker. Kemba Walker. What a weird era that was in Boston, right? The post Kyrie era where they brought in just before he was going to completely fall off a cliff and injuries were going to end his career. They bring in Kemba Walker, and it's like, okay, we've got Kyrie Light, we're fine. They were not fine. So, they had to go through a lot of different iterations in order to get to this team. But you know what? Brad Stevens, he ultimately did it. So credit to him. And he followed the general analytic beats. He always wanted teams that shot threes. He always wanted teams that were long with switchable defenders. It's like there's not necessarily a whole lot to learn there because this is already the general strategy that a lot of teams have been trying to follow for the past 10 years, honestly, since, as you were saying, Golden State changed the game. Yeah. But they finally found the perfect iteration of it that worked for them.
Potential all-stars at basically every starting position.
Yeah.
The Suns were one of the teams. There were two teams that traded for a Wizards player and hoped they would have a better season, and one team actually got that, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's fair.
I want to talk about the Mavs.
Yeah, I've got another thing to say about them, too. Then we'll move on.
Post All-Star break, so meaning after they made their substantial moves that they needed to make in order to be the team that they were to make it to the NBA Finals, the Mavs had the best defensive differential within 6 feet of the rim of any team in the NBA once they put their team together. And I think it's important to point out for them because they did that with Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic on the perimeter, which is not nothing. They had the best rim defense in the NBA with two guys who kind of get blown by a lot defensively.
But Mike,
Kyrie's not an awful defender.
Dallas fans told me that Luka is good on defense now.
Yeah, well,
he's in
we just
shape
watched
now.
the NBA Finals.
I know.
And look, I want to point that out, but I also want to point this out. I looked at the top five. The top five post All-Star break point differential within 6 feet of the rim. So basically any shot taken close to the rim. Mavs number 1, number 2 Wolves, number 3 Thunder, number 4 Celtics. Those are all really good teams, right?
Yeah.
Number 5?
Phoenix.
The Phoenix Suns.
It's really weird how Nurkic was kind of good on defense this year, and it still wasn't enough, but he kind of was.
And even beyond that, Sam, to really put a real fine point on this, the extent to which the Suns' problem was offense this year
it was.
Needs to really be underlined. Now, Frank Vogel, that's been a problem with every team that he's been at in the past. The offense. You talk to any Lakers fan, that's what they're going to talk about was a problem. If you look at what he's known for when he coached the Pacers, we all know what it was, redefining their defense to be the team that could actually challenge LeBron, which they didn't, but they were one of the best at the times. The Suns actually created and cobbled together, I think, a defense that was better than the pieces that it had. meaning they could potentially do that again. But they were unable to shoot the amount of threes that they were capable of doing. They were unable to leverage KD in a scenario where he could be effective at the things that he was effective at in the past. And the same is true about Devin Booker. They couldn't do it. And part of it was that they constantly gave the ball away. The Celtics had the least turnovers in the NBA. The Mavs had the 4th least turnovers in the NBA. And the Suns had the 5th most.
Which, by the way,
in the NBA.
Credit to the Mavs, because when you have high usage ball handlers like that, it's not necessarily easy. Like Luka early on in his career was turnover prone. He was.
I mean, so was Tatum, and so was Brown, and they had the least turnovers.
Yeah.
They successfully put together a team, and this is a lot of credit to Drew Holiday, for the record. And I think Derek White, two guys who just don't really turn the ball over very much. But their stars kind of did. They're not great at passing, but they found a way to be the team that turns it over the least in the NBA. And I think it really needs to, and Bud, this is his job, right? This is what he has to fix this coming year, because he's coached a successful defense and a very successful offense, multiple successful offenses on the teams that he's coached in the past. But I just, looking at this stat and thinking about how the Mavs really put together a really great defense to finish the season, and realizing the Suns were right behind them, behind like maybe the 3 other best teams in the playoffs this year, the Wolves, the Thunder, and the Celtics. Obviously, the Celtics won. It really put a pin on just how much of the season's problems were on the offensive end, where you and I and many people thought that would be the part that would be easy for them, and that the defense would be a problem.
Devin Booker included, when he said, "How are they going to guard us?" Yeah, It's I think good to underscore that point and remind us sometimes that like this last Suns team was actually quite good, fairly good to quite good. They weren't great, and ultimately they crumbled under kind of their massive expectations, but they were a good team. It's not like they had zero identity at all. They definitely struggled to find it, but it's not like they weren't good at anything. They had things that they were good at, including, as you're pointing out, their defense turned a corner halfway through the season and was pretty damn good by the end. I hope Bud is given the right pieces to implement his scheme to the fullest, because he's going to need a lot of help. The last thing I have here on the Mavs, related to their defense, that kid Derek Lively, second on the team in playoff plus minus, despite only playing 22 minutes per game throughout their entire playoff run. He was a plus 98. Daniel Gafford was worst on the team. It was kind of Nurkic Eubanks situation, where one guy's plus minus is so good because the other guy's is so bad, or it's sort of a dual effect. But the point here being, Derek Lively is 20 years old. He just turned 20. He was a freshman coming out of Duke, 19 years old on draft night, taken 12th overall, having averaged 5 points and 5 rebounds per game as a Duke freshman. And 1 year later, he has the second highest playoff plus minus on a finals team. Now, what does the future hold for Derek Lively? I don't really know. He's interesting.
A max contract, right?
at this rate, maybe. He's interesting.
That's how it works. You play well in the finals, you get a max contract.
He's interesting because he's found a way to tap into all of the things that obviously a center needs to be good at to survive in the NBA. It doesn't necessarily mean he has the highest ceiling, despite how good his freshman year was. Like maybe or his rookie year was, we call it in the NBA. Like maybe he's just going to be another Nick Claxton type. I don't know. But either way, no one was expecting that sort of production out of a rookie for Dallas, and yet he was able to surprise them. And he was able to surprise everyone else. And I think just the lesson here is, perhaps rather obviously, there's an advantage to not trading away all of your draft picks sometimes, in that sometimes you take a guy who surprises even you and, allows you to extend your timeline, cough, cough, timeline, longer than you would otherwise think. And also,
that's 2 champions in a row that did that, by the way.
Not only, because of Christian Brown with the Denver Nuggets, absolutely. And not only that, but it's a direct rejection of the idea that, because we're about to talk about draft prospects, so this is really relevant to the Suns. This notion that if you're a contending team and you're saying, okay, we're going to keep our draft pick, but we're only going to take a player who can help us next year, let's limit ourselves to all the 21-year-olds and 22-year-olds. Here's a 19-year-old. He just kicked ass in the NBA Finals, and well, more so in the first 3 rounds and in the NBA Finals. But he kicked ass. He was one of their most important players. Now, I will admit, I'm sure there is a correlation between if you draft a 22-year-old, that player is more likely to give you first-year production than a 19-year-old. I will not deny that. I'm sure that correlation exists. But that correlation is not one-to-one. There are examples that disprove it all the time, where you can get a guy who's young and who has maybe in theory the higher ceiling, and they can still help you on a short-term basis. So just, a little reminder, James Jones, I'm sure he's not listening, but keep your mind open. You got a big job ahead of you next week, and we need you to make us proud. Go get us a Derek Lively, please.
Yep. I love that. I mean, he was awesome, like legitimately awesome, specifically in the first 3 rounds. I think once he got his head bonked a couple of times. And also, I think the Celtics just spread you out so much on defense that they really limit the effectiveness of centers in general. I think every center was kind of getting their ass kicked by the Celtics throughout the playoffs, so that's no surprise there. But in the first 3 rounds in particular, he was great, like legitimately great. And I do think it's not even just that to learn about picking a player and trusting them to work hard and be good when they're young, but also I do think there's an element of when you have the right fit, and sometimes the right fit for a center means they don't have to be ultra skilled, because Derek Lively's good. You mentioned his ceiling. Maybe it's not that high. It's probably not all-star level player, but he's really good at the things that you need a center to be good at on that particular team. And that means that at a young age, he was pretty effective, and he's not dumb. Like, he plays smart, as a center. So that there's even a little bit to learn as far as what you're looking for in a center to find somebody who can really fill that role effectively.
I mean, if you're Bud, you're looking for a guy who can run a lot of drop defense. Ideally, based on some of the schemes that Bud ran in his later years with Milwaukee, it would be great to have a guy who can also show you some scheme versatility and switch out onto the perimeter if they have to. But really, the drop, I think, is going to be the bread and butter. That's something that Lively could do. And those types of centers that just, can jump really high can come into the league, and they can do that basically instantly a lot of the time. So
and Luka really helps centers out a lot, right? Because he draws so much attention when he's driving. And they found somebody that can get up above the rim and catch those, crazy angled passes that Luka's able to send out. Now, learning what is the best thing for Devin Booker and Kevin Durant in particular, I'm not sure yet. Maybe it is a guy who shoots threes. We have yet to see a lot of Devin Booker with that in the NBA. He had his time with Saric where they killed teams when he was on the court with Saric in the past, but it's not a huge sample size.
Yeah, Aaron Baines.
And then of course we know what he was successful. Yeah, and we know what he was successful with DeAndre Ayton as well. Somebody who can screen and roll, catch it at the rim, and throw it down. As far as if that's a lob catcher fully, I do think Devin Booker's gotten a lot better at lobs. He was not very good at that to start his career, but they also don't really have anyone else who can do it. Maybe KD once in a while, maybe Brad once in a while. That's not what they're known for. Maybe if they draft someone that we're about to talk about, that will help them out a lot.
This is just a beautiful segue, so I'm glad you're introducing it like this. Yeah, let's talk about, is there perhaps a prospect that the Suns could draft 22nd overall that there's some slop about in the media at the moment who could help the Suns from a playmaking perspective and throw their best players some lobs?
So, we have some slop. It's Tyler Kolek related. Tyler Kolek is somebody who our friend Damon, our draft guy Damon, came onto our podcast and talked about a few weeks ago as a potential player for the Suns to pick at 22nd. Now, I want to preface all of this by saying I still think the Suns are pretty tight-lipped, and I think anybody saying they think the Suns are going to do this, they think the Suns are going to do that, have been mostly wrong.
They've been very wrong in the past, if we're speaking about the draft record specifically.
But that does not necessarily mean that Kolek is completely out of it. I think, first of all, Mark Bartelstein is his agent. So Bartelstein being an agent, we got to factor that in right away. It's not a guarantee, but he is Bradley Beal's agent, and his son does run the Suns organization as a whole, so that's always a possibility there. But the point is that it takes a little bit of a nudge for Sam and I to start watching film. We don't want to do it on everyone. We're not one of those guys that's out there scouting guys on every Pac-12 team, or I don't even know the names of the conferences anymore. But this was enough, I think, to get both of us to start watching some film. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, had a great time watching some Tyler Kolek film. I really did. He's good at basketball, and the team that he's on, they ran a lot of NBA stuff.
Yeah.
So it was not hard to picture what he would be like on an NBA team. And if they are interested in Tyler Kolek, and we'll talk about why, I'll just say that it makes sense to me to be interested in him, even though when we initially talked to Damon about it, I was against the idea of drafting a point guard. So what do you think?
Well, I just want to throw out some of the numbers there for anyone who hasn't done the research on Kolek yet, because we're talking here about one of the oldest, of course, prospects in the draft, a 4-year player out of Marquette. He transferred after his freshman season from George Mason to Marquette, then finished out the last 3 years at Marquette. And is an undersized point guard. That's why we're talking about him, because you're about to see his stats are good. Like his numbers, his statistical production is good. But the reason we're talking about him as a 22nd overall pick and not a lottery prospect is definitely related to sort of the physical attributes. From a numbers perspective, he averaged 15.3 points, 7.7 assists, led his conference in assists per game. Also 1.6 steals, really good assist to turnover ratio. 50% from the field, 39% from deep, 85% from the free throw line, a little bit of scoring from everywhere on the floor. If you want to talk about the actual film, like I saw a really good player at the college level who I think is probably going to, for sure, like maybe get picked on a little bit. Teams are going to try and pick on him at the NBA level. I think he's 6'2" with like maybe a 6'4" wingspan. Teams are going to try and run him through actions. So that's the end of the floor that you have to worry about. But man knows how to run an offense. And
he really does.
I posted that the last time there was a prospect who averaged 15 points, I think it was 15 points, 6 assists. Granted, I recognize like these are a little bit arbitrary, but 15 points, 6 assists, 60% true shooting, so good shooting, and a BPM box plus minus of at least 10, which is that's the stat that determines your VORP. It's the advanced like catch-all stat. The last time there was a prospect who hit all those markers, it was Tyrese Halliburton a few years ago. Tyler Kolek is not a Tyrese Halliburton level prospect because he's not big like Tyrese Halliburton, who came into the league at 6'6".
Doesn't have the pull-up shooting.
Tyrese Halliburton was 6'6". He can see over the top of defenses. He can guard multiple positions. So we're not talking about the same caliber of prospect. But just again, the production at the college level was there. I really recommend. I know you haven't seen this yet, but I really recommend Sam Vecini's podcast. First of all, in general, his the Game Theory podcast with Sam Vecini, you can look it up on YouTube. It's just really good. But in particular, he's doing film sessions with prospects right now. I think he's only going to hit a handful of them before the actual draft. He can't do everyone, but he sat down with Alex Sarr, who's potentially the number 1 pick. He did an hour-long film session with Tyler Kolek, which I'm going to quote some stuff from, so I recommend that. I just watched his video with Baylor Shireman, who's another one of these older prospects who could like maybe help a team like the Suns out immediately. So just like learning a lot from prospects, specifically about how they react to their own film. Because I think that's like just when you can get that level of access. Mike Schmitz, who now works for the Portland Trailblazers as their assistant GM, he used to do this stuff for Draft Express. And Vecini is sort of carrying the torch right now. I just think it's like some of the best content out there. But yeah, I'm impressed with Kolek for sure overall.
Top notch draft guy, Sam Vecini. If you need draft guy coverage, that's the guy to go to. I think the reason when I was watching Kolek's film in particular, the reason that I was like, okay, I could see why they'd be interested in this guy. It's literally just how he runs pick and rolls. It looks like an NBA point guard who's been in the NBA a few years. Now, keep in mind, I think one of the hardest things about watching draft film in general is just not fully understanding the level that the opponents that they're playing against play at. So understanding how it would translate to the NBA, it is what it is. But
another interesting thing there, just real quick, is that, Kolek was running pick and rolls specifically with another NBA prospect. Oso Ighodaro was the second best player on that Marquette team. They were the most frequent pick and roll partners, and Ighodaro is projected to go somewhere in the second round. So we're talking about another guy where it's like, it's hard when you're watching this film to compare everyone on an even playing field.
Yeah. So watching them play, and I think what's fascinating about the Marquette team in general is that they run a lot of NBA stuff. So they're running double drag at the top of the key. They're running like pitch back style handoff plays with Kolek catching it at the top of the key. They'll empty the entire corner of the court and put all three spacers on the opposite end, 5 out, and run empty corner pick and rolls. Steve Nash, Amare Stoudemire style pick and rolls. And what Kolek does is just immediately read it really well. He sizes up, he drives his man into the defender, and it seems like when you're talking about do the Suns need a traditional point guard, this guy's a traditional point guard. He's running pick and rolls, not really looking for his own shot. Now that is good in college. That could become long-term a ceiling problem with him in the NBA. You have to be willing to shoot, otherwise teams are just going to load up and stop the roll man. But if you're capable at ensuring that the screen is hitting, which is the job of a guard, by the way, it's not necessarily just the job of the screener. If you're capable at ensuring that that's happening, you're creating an advantage, you're creating a leverage for offense, and he was very, very good at that. He can split defenders going to the rim, he can get around them, and he's really good at short little lobs. He's really good at using his eyes to create space and pass to rollers. He's just a natural point guard.
The hostage dribble situation and then decelerating into the paint so that he can hit a little floater or pass off in a 2-on-1 situation. He just has a really natural understanding of where to be on the floor. And, now I'll bring up kind of some of the stuff he was saying to Vicini. Like, you're talking about they do NBA stuff. He said that himself. He was like, we don't have sets.
Not surprised, yeah.
He said we don't have sets per se, like some college programs. Understandably, these are younger guys. They haven't been playing basketball as long. Some coaches have really rigid schemes and really rigid sets, and it's like you have to be here, and then you are going to pass here, and then you're going to cut and set a screen there. The way Kolek described what they do at Marquette, he was like it was kind of more NBA concepts, and they were free-flowing oftentimes out of those concepts as opposed to rigid sets. To me, that's one of the greenest possible flags I could hear, is if I hear that a prospect is already capable of kind of running a successful offense in a freelance situation in college, then I know I'm going to be able to inject him into my team, and I don't have to waste time kind of like bringing him up to speed, right? Like I can just inject him into that offense next to Booker and Beal and KD, who are already guys who kind of like to freelance a lot, and that he'll pick it up. He'll understand what their tendencies are, and he just knows where to be on an NBA court without you really having to do all that much coaching, to be entirely honest. So also the fact, I just love when I hear a prospect, he quoted his own catch and shoot 3-point percentage back to Vicini. Like he was like, oh yeah, I shot 46% on catch and shoot threes. And I was like,
yep, you got to be willing.
So he's willing, he takes them and he makes them, which points to the fact that he doesn't necessarily need to have the ball in his hands all the time. That's very important. But also just the fact that he knows that, like he knows how to sell himself. Maybe that doesn't actually make him a better player than he is, but I just think it's really funny when a player is like obviously picking up on the little analytical things in their game, and they have an understanding of what their strong and weak points are. That shows a certain level of basketball intelligence to me too. So yeah, I was just really impressed again with that interview and with his game.
I think if you're talking about picking a player who could potentially contribute right away, I'm not saying Kolek will definitely do that, but I could see the vision in thinking, can he be an effective backup point guard in year one? He might not be great because I think there's still defensive questions that need to be made for him. But like as far as somebody who could potentially fill that role better than anyone the Suns had on their team last year, I think that's likely. Like I just there's a lot of offensive skill there when it comes to just the way that his brain appears to work when you watch the film.
Can we do? Go ahead. Sorry.
I just, watching him play, I could say, okay, he looks like a backup NBA point guard right now. Now, we'll see. The speed of the game always changes. There's guys like Ty Jerome who it just didn't ever fully translate in the way that you wanted it to, even though he was effective.
Ty Jerome's still in the league, right? Where is he? Is he still?
He played for the Warriors last year, I think.
Oh yes, he had a solid season for the Warriors. Actually, he's still hanging around. I mean, he's not
mostly doesn't play though.
Yeah,
like there's a chance he's not in the NBA next year. Still,
that's fair.
and that would be the worst case scenario here. But I would say that watching how Tyler Kolek is a quicker player. He's not as big. Like, Ty Jerome had the advantage of being a taller player, but I would say that Tyler's probably a little bit faster with the ball in his hands.
Can I do a little high-level pro comp to give people an idea? And you could tell me,
sure.
Here's how I'm going to phrase it. This is high level. This is like ceiling pro comp, I think. But, like,
okay.
I'll just list the attributes, and I want to see if it reminds you of an NBA player. Lefty, traditional point guard. We start there. Because Kolek is a lefty. We should have mentioned. He's a left-hand dominant player.
Yeah. I don't know why it's fun for me, but it is.
Lefty, dominant point guard, can do a little bit of everything, but prefers a tendency towards slashing over shooting, especially when it comes to creating their own shot off the dribble. But can hit that off-ball shot as well. Just a traditional point guard who's not explicitly traditionally athletic, but has the burst when they need it. Right, likes to push the pace. Likes to get out and express that burst, not in like a sort of Ja Morant, Russell Westbrook way, but kind of in their own way.
Yeah.
High level point guard, does this remind you of anyone?
Because honestly, my mind went blank when you said prefers to slash, and all I could think of was Cameron Payne.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's who you were thinking of.
No, I'm thinking of Goran Dragic.
That's interesting.
When I think of the way that Goran Dragic...
Yeah, that would be like absolute 1% best case scenario.
No, for sure. And Dragic had a ridiculously long career, but the way that Dragic was able to attack... I mean, Dragic was drafted in the second round. He didn't have a great body coming out. He had to grow into it. And
6'4", though. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like his, like, shuttle speeds were the best or anything, right? Like, he had the burst when he needed to, and he learned how to play out of a high-octane offense and take advantage of his slashing. But he wasn't, as we know from that one career highlight, he wasn't Derrick Rose, baby. If he tried to challenge Derrick Rose at the rim, he wasn't winning that fight. And yet he was still just an extraordinarily skilled, talented point guard who ran an offense for years and years. And I think a little bit as his career went on, learned more how to take advantage of offense and became a better pull-up shooter and really became the whole combo shooting guard thing in Phoenix.
Yeah,
but it
happened here.
I think of the original Goran Dragic, who was here in his first stint in Phoenix when he ran point guard right after Steve Nash left the team. And I feel like there's a lot of Tyler Kolek in that game.
Yeah. I love it. I think, TJ McConnell, I think, was the player that Kellen compared him to in his article that he wrote. I think that's an interesting one, too. I do think that just in general, Kolek can catch and shoot, and that just makes him more effective off the ball, whereas TJ kind of needs the ball to be effective, so there's a difference there. But yeah, I think, obviously just think of a white guy and make that comparison.
I mean,
it might work. Yeah.
He's Ty Jerome.
What didn't you say he called himself an unathletic point guard? Isn't that something
he said? He
himself?
was honest. He said it. He was like, when you're an unathletic point guard, he said you got to have some gumption to you. And I think what he meant is that you have to be like competitive and like take hits and find ways to stay on the floor. That like even though you're understanding that you're smaller, if you play like you're small and unathletic too, you're just not going to make it. Is sort of what I think he was hinting at there. So yeah. Big Tyler Kolek fans here at the Timeline. They're probably not going to take him because let's be honest.
No, I had fun watching point guard film when there's a point guard that's like really high level in college.
Right,
is actually pretty fun. So I even if the Suns don't take Kolek, he ends up in the NBA. Maybe he even fizzles out.
But it's like
watch his college film. It's still fun to watch.
The only two times that James Jones has actually taken a guy in the first round. The first time we were all talking about like, oh, Jarrett Culver or whatever, and then, they make the trade. They take Cam Johnson, came out of nowhere. Yeah. Cam Johnson was like in the 20s on people's boards. And then the second time, we were all talking about the same crop of prospects who literally all turned out to be awesome NBA players. We all talked about Tyrese Halliburton, Devin Vassell, and Desmond Bane And I remember this vividly, and I will never forget it. It was like, oh yeah, if the Suns get one of these three guys, they're kind of NBA ready, and they all look awesome.
We were right.
We were right. They all turned out to be.
We're not even draft guys. They all rock.
They all turned out to be awesome, and the Suns took Jalen Smith, who was in everyone's big board in the 20s. So who knows? Tyler Kolek is the most frequently mocked guy to the Suns. I don't actually think that means he's most likely to be drafted by the Suns, but his tape is fun.
He is fun. And Bill Simmons also implied, just to move on from Kolek a little bit, that Bronny is actually in play for the Suns as a first-round pick, like 22nd. That seems like it's not true, right?
I'll tell you right now.
Yeah.
Bronny James is going to be taken in the first round of the NBA draft.
Okay.
I'm putting on my clairvoyant Sam hat. Remember when Bill used to do that?
Yeah, that's right. Uh-huh.
He's going to be taken in the first round by the Los Angeles Lakers, 17th overall. So we're not going to have to worry about it at 22.
That's true.
So
you're probably right.
The threat of it is there. The threat of the Suns being interested in there is there, and that's why LA is going to feel the pressure, and they're going to say, fuck it, there's nothing we can do. We've got the 17th pick. We got to take LeBron's son, 17th overall, and we're going to be saved from that. And we're all going to breathe a collective sigh of relief on our stream.
I'll remind people that Bill very confidently implied that Kevin Young was going to be the coach of the Phoenix Suns last season. And then when he was wrong, you can kind of tell in the way that he talked about the Phoenix Suns after that. There was just a little bit of anger that whatever happened there was wrong. Whatever information that he got was not quite right. So it's possible that that's what people are saying. I don't personally believe it to be true. I think it would be pretty hilarious if that happened. I have no other reaction than that. Maybe it's a disaster. Maybe not. I refuse to have opinions on drafts, guys that are drafted until I've seen them in the NBA now. But it would be pretty funny if that did end up happening, especially if it meant that LeBron didn't end up signing with the Lakers, which, by the way, can happen. Another segue here today, because as of today, the day after the NBA Finals is over, so we're recording this on Tuesday, teams can now negotiate and sign contracts with their own free agents, meaning if LeBron opted out, he could now negotiate with the Lakers, or more specifically to the Phoenix Suns. Royce O'Neale is an unrestricted free agent, but he did last play on the Phoenix Suns. The Suns can now negotiate and sign Royce O'Neale to an extension. And I personally expect that to happen very soon.
But cannot announce publicly that extension.
Until, yes, that's right. Do you have the dates in front of you?
So I've got the Bobby Marks tweet here. What is not allowed? Negotiate with a free agent not on your roster. Yeah, okay, sure. The Suns are already probably negotiating with some of their favorite free agents. Just as every other team is. Let's just hope that they don't make the Drew Eubanks mistake again, okay? If you're going to get caught for a player who's worth it. Don't get caught for Drew Eubanks, please. Announce publicly that a team and free agent have reached agreement on a contract. The first allowable date is when the moratorium expires. That's July 6th.
But Woj can say it. You know what I mean? It does. An announcement publicly means like a tweet with the picture of the team.
That is exactly correct, and that is why you always see, even though the moratorium ends on July 6th, that Shams and Woj announce all of the actual transactions on July 1st or July 2nd as they trickle in.
And they put the agent's name in the tweet because the agent cannot wait to tell them how great of a job they did.
Exactly.
Right.
So the team, the player, the agent, none of them are allowed to say anything. But if Woj knows, then Woj can say it. That is correct. So we can make that negotiation right now with Royce O'Neale. And hopefully they get it done really quickly and we hear about it, maybe even in the next week. From someone like Woj or Shams, but that announcement would not come from the Suns. It would not come from Royce O'Neale until July 6th.
And if anyone missed it, what we expect, what Sam and I anticipate, is essentially, here's what I'll guess. I'm guessing it's going to be 3 years, or most likely 3 years, but maybe not with the third year fully guaranteed. With the first year starting essentially exactly around or slightly over what the MLE is expected to be.
Yeah,
so that'll be some sort of AAV of like $13 million over 3 years. 3 years, approximately $40 million, with I would say the majority of that, if not 75% of it being guaranteed, maybe the last year only being partially guaranteed. Why? Because, and is that an overpayment? Maybe on the open market, he probably wouldn't be getting that full amount. He probably would get some sort of tax-paying MLE. I don't think he's a minimum player, though. I think he's better than that. But why would he get paid that much? Well, the Suns need more than the MLE in order to be able to potentially trade for an MLE player in the future, because they cannot take back any more than they send out. So if they want to have options, a lot of guys are going to get an MLE contract, especially now with the salary floor rules. They're going to sign him to either that exact amount or slightly more because they can, because he's the Suns' free agent, and now they can use him as a trade piece in the future. But other than that, they can keep him because he was outside of the playoffs pretty good for the Suns. I was about to
say, he is, in theory, a pretty good player, and in the playoffs, unfortunately, was definitely disappointing. And didn't
Grayson Allen injury really, I mean, I don't want to make excuses, of course, but that really did doom them, like, if to make sure that they weren't going to win a single game.
Yeah, losing our third best player like that, I mean, man.
Yeah. So I think for us, we're going to say expect a 3-year deal for Royce O'Neale sometime in the next few days, but it's possible, like there's a chance the Suns have already been like, yeah, we're going to give it to you. We'll do it later. And that's probably fine too. It may not be announced right away. But yeah, we're expecting Royce O'Neale to be back. That was the reporting by Brian Windhorst, and he's our guy, so we always believe him. So we're expecting that to be very soon. I'm excited to have him back. I think he was pretty good. It's going to be better than any free agent they'll get as a minimum contract guy, and it'll be nice to have some sort of contract to make fake trades with around the trade deadline besides Grayson Allen's. So that's another reason I'm excited.
You're saying he's going to be better than he's going to be better than Mo Bamba?
Yeah,
starting center. He's going to be better than Andre Drummond, who's a guy I talked about recently, or Luke Cornett. NBA champion Luke Cornett.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, we'll get to more free agents soon. So I guess we got to figure out the schedule here. It's started to do the inside.
The draft is soon.
Started to do the inside baseball, but the draft's coming soon, so we got to cover the draft. But we need at least one more free agency episode for sure to talk about more targets. It'll be a busy couple of weeks for you guys. We will. Unfortunately, I don't think we can stream the draft for people, as in you won't be able to watch, but we'll probably all just be hanging out on playback so that we could all be synced up and like talking about it at the same time. So definitely join us on playback next week when we do that for the draft. And otherwise, yeah, we'll be back soon.
Definitely
right?
Day one. Possibly day two.
Possibly day
we'll
two.
See.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they trade for something.
There's 2 days to the draft now. If you didn't realize that, there's 2 days now. Round one is on Wednesday, and round 2 is on Thursday. Is that right?
Yep.
26th and 27th. Yeah. So definitely, hang out with us for that. I think it'll be a good time. We had the NBA Finals. I mentioned this while I was on playback. Would not have been very fun for me to watch alone, but I did have a good time watching it with Suns fans and with Sam and Kellen on playback. And I think the draft will be the type of thing where, if you're surrounded by people that have the same interests as you, it'll probably be a little bit more fun. So hang out with us on playback, I think, and that's open to everyone that can join. That'll be a good time. Other than that, Patreon episode sometime in the next few days. So patreon.com/thetimeline if you want to sign up. It's a good time to sign up because we'll have extra content every week. If you have ideas on what you want us to talk about, feel free to let us know. And yeah, that's all we got. So thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back soon.